Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatashatashmad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatashatashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Mahabhagavat Shila Gokshara Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nityalpa Vishtam Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadas Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanantari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Nam Achay Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Bhaja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Srivas Pandit Ki Jai Srivas Thakur Ki Jai Tadiya Shubha Tiruval Titi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shinitai Gaur Premanande Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Pishe Namaha Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namo Yam Pravajantam Anupetam Apeta Kritam Taipaya no Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bine Stang Sarvabhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ritantasto Yapadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayashvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashtakama Madhe Kripa Mahitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let's see who's all there. Dandavat Pranams, Madhavi Didi, Gargaraj, Rupmanjari Didi, Aseshri Mataji, Indira Mataji, Dandavat Pranams to everybody. Prajumna Prabhu and Mantra Murthy Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. Okay, so in the first chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asks about Priyavrat. He says, how could Priyavrat enjoy household life and still perfect his Krishna consciousness? Because those who are liberated, those who are, they don't absorb themselves in family affairs. Obstacles cannot, and then Shukadev Goswami replies, obstacles cannot obstruct one's absorption in bhakti. Priyavrata could neither welcome Manu's request to rule, nor reject it. And so therefore, Brahmā arrives. He descends, being praised by the demigods, and he meets Priyavrata, looking at him with compassion and smiling. Then Brahma says to Priyavrata, the Lord's order cannot be defied or avoided by anyone. The jivas are dependent on the Lord's order in accepting bodies and conducting their lives. Even liberated persons accept his order. A self-controlled person is unaffected by family life. Therefore, seek shelter of the Lord and conquer your senses. Priyavrata and Narad Muni, and then Priyavrata accepts Lord Brahma's request. And Priyavrata and Narad Muni had no resentments. And Manu becomes detached. Then, I'm just seeing what we read yesterday. We read 32 to 41, okay. So then, Priyavrata, he divided Bhumandal into 7 oceans and 7 islands and made his sons their rulers. So let's read from 32 to the end. Yeah, we'll read from 32 to 30. So Priyavrata's rule, descendants, and wonderful activities. Priyavrata fully engaged in worldly affairs by the order of the Lord. Yet he always thought of the Lord's lotus feet, which are the cause of liberation. Although he was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. Note, a devotee is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the Supreme Lord's order. So Priyavrata married Barhishmati, the daughter of Vishvakarma, and they gave birth to 10 sons who were equal. They gave birth to 10 sons who were equal to their father in qualities and have the names of Agni. So these are all, I guess, different names of Agni. And so 7 of those 10 sons were Agnidhra, Idmadjiva, Yagyabahu, Hiranyareta, Gritaprishta, Medatiti, and Vitihotra. And he gave them rule for all the 7 islands, to each one of those 7 sons. And then 3 of those 10 sons were brahmacharis, Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana. And they entered the Paramahansa ashram. And also through Barhishmati, there's 10 sons and also 1 daughter, Ujjaswati, who married Shukracharya, and they gave birth to Devayani. She gave birth to Devayani. And then, so that was through Priyavrata's first wife. And then through his second wife,
he had 3 sons, Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata, and those were the Manus of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Manvantars. Okay, so the impressions of Priyavrata's chariot wheels created 7 islands and 7 oceans on Bhumandal. He gave these islands to his sons to rule. Parikshit may doubt, how could Priyavrata do all this? Because also, didn't he also manifest another son? Yeah, he's amazing. So, Shukadeva Goswami says, a devotee's power is not astonishing. A devotee who has taken shelter of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet can transcend the influence of the 6 material whips, hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death, and can conquer the mind and 5 senses. However, this is not surprising for a devotee, because even an untouchable is immediately relieved of the bondage of material existence by uttering the Lord's holy name even once. Wow. Priyavrata's repentance and renunciation. Priyavrata once began to consider that although he had fully surrendered to the great Saint Narad, he had somehow become entangled in material activities. Thus, becoming disgusted, he spoke. Alas, I have fallen into material enjoyment, which is like a blind well. Enough, no more enjoyment. I am like a dancing monkey in the hands of my wife. Reawakened to his senses by the Lord's grace, Priyavrata divided the earth among his obedient sons. He renounced his wife and kingdom as if they were a dead body. Fully detached, his heart became a place of pastimes for the Lord, and he resumed the path of spiritual life given by Narad. No one but the Supreme Lord could do what Priyavrata has done. He dissipated the darkness of night. He excavated the 7 oceans with the rims of his great chariot. He marked boundaries with rivers, mountains, and forests to stop trespassing and quarreling among different nations, and considered the results of karma and yoga as hellish, whether in the lower regions, in heaven, or in human society. This is because he is a great follower of Narad. So that's what we read yesterday. And now today, what verse are we reading up to? We're reading up to 14. If we make it there, but yeah. We'll read about Agnidhra's rule and austerities. Brahmā sends Purvacitti, who wanders about in a beautiful garden, and Āgnidhra opens his eyes and Cupid enters his mind. And he tries to flatter Purvacitti. That's what we're reading today. All right. More prose. Okay, let me just quickly see the comments. Everything's okay. Looks like it. Oh, Haribol Champak. Okay. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam pitari sampravritte tar anushasane vartamana Agnidhro Jambu Dvipau Kasa Praja O Rasavar Dharma Vekshana Mana Paryakopayat. Yeah. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued. After his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities, King Agnidhra completely obeyed his order. Strictly observing the principles of religion, he gave full protection to the inhabitants of Jambudvip, as if they were his own begotten sons. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Following the instruction of his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, Maharaj Agnidhra ruled the inhabitants of Jambudvip according to the religious principles. These principles are exactly contrary to the modern principles of faithlessness. As clearly stated here, the king protected the citizens the way a father protects his begotten children. How he ruled the citizens is also described here. Dharma Vekshamana. strictly according to religious principles. It is the duty of the executive head of a state to see that the citizens strictly follow religious principles. The Vedic religious principles begin with Varnashram Dharma, the duties of the 4 Varnas and 4 Ashrams. Dharma refers to the principles given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first principle of Dharma, or religion, is to observe the duties of the 4 orders as enjoined by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to people's qualities and activities, society should be divided into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and then again into Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis. These are religious principles, and it is the duty of the head of state to see that his citizens strictly follow them. He should not merely act officially. He should be like a father who is always a well-wisher of his sons. Such a father strictly observes whether his sons are performing their duties, and sometimes he also punishes them. So I'm just finding my place so I can follow along in the book also. Okay. Just contrary to the principles mentioned here, the presidents and chief executives in the age of Kali are simply tax collectors who do not care whether religious principles are observed. Indeed, the chief executives of the present day introduce all kinds of sinful activity, especially illicit sex, intoxication, animal killing, and gambling. These sinful activities are now very prominently manifested in India. Although 100 years ago these 4 principles of sinful life were strictly prohibited in families of India, they have now been introduced into every Indian family. Therefore, they cannot follow religious principles. In contrast to the principles of the kings of old, the modern state is concerned only with propaganda for levying taxes and is no longer responsible for the spiritual welfare of the citizens. The state is now callous to religious principles. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam predicts that in Kali Yuga, the government will be entrusted with dasyu dharma, which means the occupational duty of rogues and thieves. Modern heads of state are rogues and thieves who plunder the citizens instead of giving them protection. Rogues and thieves plunder without regard for law. But in this age of Kali, as stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the lawmakers themselves plunder the citizens. The next prediction to be fulfilled, which is already coming to pass, is that because of sinful activities of the citizens and the government, rain will become increasingly scarce. Gradually there will be a complete drought and no production of food grains. People will be reduced to eating flesh and seeds, and many good spiritually inclined people will have to forsake their homes because they will be too harassed by drought, taxation, and famine. The Krishna consciousness movement is the only hope to save the world from such devastation. It is the most scientific and authorized movement for the actual welfare of the whole human society. Wow. Sa kadachet pitriloka kama suravara vanitakri dachala dronyam bhagavantam vishvasrijam patim abhrita paricharyopakarana atmaika grenya tapasvaradhyam babhuva. Am I in the right? Okay. Okay, never mind, sorry. Desiring to get a perfect son and become an inhabitant of Pitriloka, Maharaj Agnidhra once worshipped Lord Brahmā, the master of those in charge of material creation. He went to a valley of Mandara hill, where the damsels of the heavenly planets come down to stroll. There he collected garden flowers and other necessary paraphernalia, and then engaged in severe austerities and worship. Purport. The king became Pitriloka Kama, or desirous of being transferred to the planets named Pitriloka. Pitriloka is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pitrinyanti Privrata. To go to this planet, one needs very good sons who can make offerings to Lord Vishnu and then offer the remnants to their forefathers. The purpose of the Shraddha ceremony is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, so that after pleasing him, one may offer prasad to one's forefathers, and in this way make them happy. The inhabitants of Pitriloka are generally men of the karma kandya, or fruit of activities category, who have been transferred there because of their pious activities. They can stay there as long as their descendants offer them Vishnu prasad. Everyone in heavenly planets such as Pitriloka, however, must return to earth after exhausting the effects of his pious acts. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.21, Kshine punye martha lokam vishanti. Persons who perform pious acts are transferred to higher planets, but when the effects of their pious acts are over, they are again transferred to earth. Since Maharaj Priyavrata was a great devotee, how could he have begotten a son who desired to be transferred to Pitriloka? Lord Krishna says, Pitrin yanti Pitrivrata. Persons who desire to go to Pitriloka are transferred there. Similarly, yanti mad yajino bimam. Persons who desire to be transferred to the spiritual planets, like Kuntalokas, can also go there. Since Maharaj Agnidhra was the son of a Vaishnava, he should have desired to be transferred to the spiritual world, by Kuntaloka. Why then did he desire to be transferred to Pitriloka? In answer to this, Goswami Giridhar, one of the Bhagavatam commentators, remarks that Agnidhra was born when Maharaj Priyavrata was infatuated by lusty desires. This may be accepted as a fact, because sons are begotten with different mentalities according to the time of their conception. According to the Vedic system, therefore, before a child is conceived, the Garbhadhan Samskar is performed. This ceremony molds the mentality of the father in such a way that when he plants his seed in the womb of his wife, he will beget the child whose mind will be completely saturated with a devotional attitude. At the present moment, however, there are no such Garbhadhan Samskars, and therefore people generally have a lusty attitude when they beget children. Especially in this age of Kali, there are no Garbhadhan ceremonies. Everyone enjoys sex with his wife like a cat or a dog. Therefore, according to Shastric injunctions, almost all the people of this age belong to the Shudra category. Of course, although Maharaj Agnidhra had a desire to be transferred to Pitriloka, this does not mean that his mentality was that of a Shudra. He was a Kshatriya. Maharaj Agnidhra desired to be transferred to Pitriloka, and therefore he needed a wife, because anyone desired to be transferred to Pitriloka must leave behind a good son to offer yearly pinda, or prasadam, from Lord Vishnu. To have a good son, Maharaj Agnidhra wanted a wife from a family of demigods. Therefore, he went to Mandara Hill, where the women of the demigods generally come to worship Lord Brahmā. In Bhagavad Gita 4.12, it is said, Kankshata karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devata. Materialists who want quick results in the material world worship demigods. This is also confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Shri Aishwarya Praje Sava. Those who desire beautiful wives, substantial wealth, and many sons worship the demigods. But an intelligent devotee, instead of being entangled by the happiness of this material world in the form of a beautiful wife, material opulence, and children, desires to be immediately transferred back home, back to Godhead. Thus he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Tar upalabhya Bhagavan Adi Purusha Sadhasi Kayantim Purvacittim Sarasam Abhiya Payam Asa. Understanding King Agnidhra's desire, the first and most powerful created being of this universe, Lord Brahmā, selected the best of the dancing girls in his assembly, whose name was Purvacitti, and sent her to the king. Purport. In this verse, the word Bhagavan Adi Purusha are significant. Bhagavan Adi Purusha is Lord Krishna. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Lord Krishna is the original person. In Bhagavad Gita, he is also addressed by Arjuna as Purusham Adyam, the original person, and he is called Bhagavan. In this verse, however, we see that Lord Brahma is described as Bhagavan Adi Purusha. The reason he is called Bhagavan is that he fully represents the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is the firstborn creature in this universe. Lord Brahma could understand Maharaj Agnidhra's desire because he is as powerful as Lord Vishnu. As Lord Vishnu, situated as Paramatma, can understand the desire of the living entity, so Lord Brahma can also understand the living entity's desire, for Vishnu, as a via medium, informs him. As stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the first verse, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Lord Vishnu informs Lord Brahma of everything from within his heart. Because Maharaj Agnidhra specifically worshipped Lord Brahma was pleased, and he sent Purvacitti, the Apsara, to satisfy him. Sachatar ashramo pavanam ati ramaniyam vivida nibira vitapi vitapa nikara shangshlishta purata lata ruddha stala vihangama mitunai prochyamana shrutibi pratibhodhyamana salila kukuta karandava kalahangsadibhir vichitram upakujita jalashaya kamalakaram upabhabrama. The Apsara sent by Lord Brahma began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the king was meditating and worshipping. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds, such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage, the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. Tasya sulalita gamanapada vinyasa gati vilasayash chanu padam Kanakanaya mana ruchira charanabharana swanam upakarnya naradeva kumara samadhi yogena milita nayana nalina mukula yugalam isad vikachaya vyachashta. As Purvacitti passed by on the road in a very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with her every step. Although Prince Agnidhra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes, and when he heard the sweet tinkling of her bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more, and could see that she was just nearby. Purport. It is said that yogis always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts. Dhyana vastita tad gatena manasa pashanti yam yogina. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 12:13-1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice sampreksha nasikagram, keeping their eyes half open. If the eyes are closed completely, there will be a tendency to sleep. So-called yogis sometimes practice a fashionable form of yoga by closing their eyes and meditating, but we have actually seen such so-called yogis sleeping and snoring while meditating. This is not the practice of yoga. To actually practice yoga, one should keep his eyes half open and gaze at the tip of his nose. Does gazing at the tip of your nose mean going cross-eyed? That would be painful after a little while. Anyways. Or no, it probably doesn't mean gazing at the tip. I mean, with me, because I have such a big nose, I don't need to go cross-eyed to look at the tip of my nose. Although Agnidhra, the son of Priyavrata, was practicing mystic yoga and trying to control his senses, the tinkling sound of Purvacitti's ankle bells disturbed his practice. Yoga Indriya Samyama. Actual yoga practice means controlling the senses. One must practice mystic yoga to control the senses. But the sense control of a devotee who fully engages in the service of the Lord with his purified senses, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, can never be disturbed. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati therefore stated, Durdatendriya Kala Sarpa Patali Protkata Dangstra Yate. Chaitanya Chandramrita 5. The practice of yoga is undoubtedly good because it controls the senses, which are like venomous serpents. When one engages in devotional service, however, completely employing all the activities of the senses in the service of the Lord, the venomous quality of the senses is completely nullified. It is explained that a serpent is to be feared because of its poison fangs. But if those fangs are broken, the serpent, although it seems fearsome, is not at all dangerous. Devotees therefore may see hundreds and thousands of beautiful women with fascinating bodily movements and gestures, but not be allured. Whereas such women would make ordinary yogis fall. Even the advanced yogi Vishramita broke his mystic practice to unite with Menaka and beget a child known as Shakuntala. It's the name of my sister. The practice of mystic yoga, therefore, is not sufficiently strong to control the senses. Another example is Prince Āgnidhra, whose attention was drawn to the movements of Purvacitti, the Apsara, simply because he had heard the tinkling of her ankle bells. And the same way that Vishramuni was attracted by the tinkling bangles of Menaka, Prince Āgnidhra, upon hearing the tinkling bangles of Purvacitti, immediately opened his eyes to see her beautiful movements as she walked. The prince was also very handsome, as described herein. His eyes were just like the buds of lotus flowers. As he opened his lotus-like eyes, he could immediately see that the Apsara was present by his side. Hey, look, it's my name. Oh my god, this is a really long one. Oh, Krishna. Okay, let's make it through this. Tam eva vidure madhukarim eva sumanasa upajigrantim divija manuja mano nayanahlada dughar gati vihara vrida vinaya valoka susvaraksharavayavar manasi nrinam kusumayudhasya vidhadhatim vivaram nejamukha vigalitamrita sava sahasa bhashanamoda madandha madhukara again madhukara nikaro parodhena druta pada vinyasena valgu spandana stana kalasha kabara bhara rashanam devim tar avalokanena vivrita vasarasya bhagavato makara dhvajasya vasham upanito jadavad iti hovacha. It's like Gita Govinda. Madhukara nikara karam vita. Anyways. Like a honeybee, the Apsara smelled the beautiful and attractive flowers. She could attract the minds and vision of both humans and demigods by her playful movements, her shyness and humility, her glances, the very pleasing sounds that poured from her mouth as she spoke, and the motion of her limbs. By all these qualities, she opened for Cupid, who bears an arrow of flowers, a path of oral reception into the minds of men. By all these qualities, she opened for Cupid, who bears an arrow of flowers, a path of oral reception into the minds of men. When she spoke, nectar seemed to flow from her mouth. As she breathed, the bees, mad for the taste of her breath, tried to hover about her beautiful lotus-like eyes. Disturbed by the bees, she tried to move hastily, but as she raised her feet to walk quickly, her hair, the belt on her hips, and her breasts, which were like water jugs, also moved in a way that made her extremely beautiful and attractive. Indeed, she seemed to be making a path for the entrance of Cupid, who is most powerful. Therefore, the prince, completely subdued by seeing her, spoke to her as follows. Purports. How a beautiful woman's movements and gestures, her hair and the structure of her breasts, hips, and other bodily features attract the minds of not only of men, but of demigods also, is very finely described in this statement. The words Divija and Manuja specifically emphasize that the attraction of feminine gestures is powerful everywhere within this material world, both on this planet and in the higher planetary systems. It is said that the standard of living in the higher planetary systems is thousands and thousands of times greater than the standard of living on this planet. Therefore, the beautiful bodily features of the women there are also thousands of times more attractive than the features of the women on Earth. The Creator has constructed women in such a way that their beautiful voices and movements and the beautiful features of their hips, their breasts, and the other parts of their bodies attract the members of the opposite sex, both on Earth and on other planets, and awaken their lusty desires. When one is controlled by Cupid or the beauty of women, he becomes stunned like matter such as stone. Captivated by the material movements of women, he wants to remain in this material world. Thus, one's promotion to the spiritual world is checked simply by seeing the beautiful bodily structure and movements of women. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore warned all devotees to beware of the attraction of beautiful women and materialistic civilization. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even refused to see Prataparudra Maharaj because he was a very opulent person in the material world. Lord Chaitanya said in this connection, Niskinchanasya Bhagavar Bhajanon Mukasya. Those who are engaged in devotional service of the Lord, because they are very serious about going back to Godhead, should be very careful to avoid seeing the beautiful gestures of women and should also avoid seeing persons who are very rich. Niskinchanasya Bhagavar Bhajanon Mukasya Param Jigamishor Bhavasagarasya Sandarshanam Vishainam Atayoshitam Cha Ha Hanta Hanta Vishabhakshanato Pyasadu. Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, for that person, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. It's a strong verse. It's from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 11.8. One who is serious about going back to Godhead, should not contemplate the attractive features of women and the opulence of rich men. Such contemplation will check one's advancement in spiritual life. Once a devotee is fixed in Krishna consciousness, however, these attractions will not agitate his mind. Finally, a verse. Katam chikir shashi chakim munivarya shaile mayasikapi bhagavat paradevataya vijay bhabharsi dhanushi suridatmanorte kim va mrigaya se vipina pramattan. The prince mistakenly addressed the Apsara. O best of saintly persons, who are you? Why are you on this hill? And what do you want to do? Are you one of the illusory potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? You seem to be carrying two bows without strings. What is the reason you carry these bows? Is it for some purpose of your own, or for the sake of a friend? Perhaps you carry them to kill mad animals in this forest. Purport. While undergoing severe penances in the forest, Agnidhra was captivated by the movements of Purvacitti, the girl sent by Lord Brahma. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Kamastaister Rita Jnana. When one becomes lusty, he loses his intelligence. Therefore, Agnidhra, having lost his intelligence, could not distinguish whether Purvacitti was male or female. He mistook her for a Muni Putra, the son of a saintly person in the forest, and he dressed her as Muni Varya. Because of her personal beauty, however, he could not believe her to be a boy. He therefore began studying her features. First he saw her 2 eyebrows, which were so impressive that he wondered whether she might be the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words used in this connection are Bhagavat Paradevataya. Devata, the demigods, all belong to this material world, whereas Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always beyond this material world and is therefore known as Paradevata. The material world is certainly created by Maya, but it is created under the direction of Paradevata, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dhakshena Prakriti Suyate Satchara Charam. Maya is not the ultimate authority for the creation of this material world. Maya acts on behalf of Krishna. Purvacitti's eyebrows were so beautiful that Agnidhra compared them to bows without strings. He therefore asked her whether they were to be used for her own purposes or for the sake of someone else. Her eyebrows were like bows meant to kill animals in the forest. The material world is like a great forest, and its inhabitants are like forest animals. Like forest animals such as deer and tigers meant to be killed. The killers are the eyebrows of beautiful women. Captivated by the beauty of the fair sex, all the men of the world are killed by bows without strings, but cannot see how they are killed by Maya. It is a fact, however, that they are being killed. Bhutva bhutva praliyate. By dint of his tapasya, Agnidhra could understand how Maya acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word pramattan is also significant. Pramatta refers to one who cannot control his senses. The entire material world is being exploited by people who are pramatta, or vimura. Prahlad Maharaj therefore said, Shoche tato vimukha chetasa indriyartha, maya sukaya bharama udvahato vimuram. They are rotting in material activities for transient material pleasure and spoiling their lives toiling all day and night simply for sense gratification, with no attachment for love of Godhead. I am simply lamenting for them and devising various plans to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 7.9.43. Karmis who act very seriously for sense gratification are always referred to in the Shastras by such terms as pramata, vimukha, and vimura. They are killed by Maya. However, one who is apramata, a sane, sober person, a dhira, knows very well that a human being's primary duty is to render service to the Supreme Person. Maya is always ready to kill those who are pramata with her invisible bows and arrows. Agnidhra questioned Purvacitti about this. Panavimo bhagavata shatapatra patro shantavapunka ruchira vatitigmatanto kasmaya yungshasivane vicharana vedma kshemaya no jaradiyam tavavikramostu. Then Agnidhra observed the glancing eyes of Purvacitti and said, My dear friends, you have 2 very powerful arrows, namely your glancing eyes. Those arrows have feathers like the petals of the lotus flower. Although they have no shafts, they are very beautiful and they have very sharp, piercing points. They appear very peaceful, and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone. You must be loitering in this forest to shoot those arrows at someone, but I cannot understand whom. My intelligence is dull, and I cannot combat you. Indeed, no one can equal you in prowess, and therefore I pray that your prowess will be for my good fortune. Agnidhra thus began appreciating Purvacitti's powerful glance upon him. He compared her glancing eyes to very sharp arrows. Although her eyes were as beautiful as lotuses, they were simultaneously like shaftless arrows, and Agnidhra was therefore afraid of them. He hopes that her glances upon him would be favorable, because he was already captivated, and the more captivated he became, the more impossible it would be for him to remain without her. Agnidhra therefore prayed to Purvacitti that her glances at him would be auspicious, not futile. In other words, he prayed that she would become his wife. Oh man, I'm starting to get tired. I went to sleep at 1 o'clock this morning. I'm going to stand up. No, I went to bed past 1 o'clock. Okay, 1 second. Shishya ime bhagavata parita patanti gayanti sama sarahasya Yushmachchika vilulita sumano bhivrishti sarve bhajanti rishigana iva vedashaka. Seeing the bumblebees following Purvacitti, Maharaj Agnidhra said, "My dear Lord, the bumblebees surrounding your body are like disciples surrounding your worshipable self." Did he call her my dear Lord? They are incessantly chanting the mantras of the Samaveda and the Upanishads, thus offering prayers to you. Just as great sages resort to the branches of Vedic literatures, the bumblebees are enjoying the showers of flowers falling from your hair. Vacham param charana panjarati tarinam Brahmana rupa mukaram shrinavamatubhyam labdha kadamba ruchiram kavitanka bimbe yasyam alata paridhi kvachavalkam kalamte. O Brahman, I can simply hear the tinkling of your ankle bells. Within those bells, titiri birds seem to be chirping among themselves. Although I do not see their forms, I can hear how they are chirping. When I look at your beautiful circular hips, I see that they are the lovely color of kadamba flowers, and your waist is encircled by a belt of burning cinders. Indeed, you seem to have forgotten to dress yourself. Purport. With lusty desires to see Purvacitti, Agnidhra especially gazed upon the girl's attractive hips and waist. When a man looks upon a woman with such lusty desires, he is captivated by her face, her breasts, and her waist. For a woman first attracts a man to fulfill his sexual desires by the beautiful features of her face, by the beautiful slope of her breasts, and also by her waist. Purvacitti was dressed in fine yellow silk, and therefore her hips looked like kadamba flowers. Because of her belt, her waist seemed to be encircled by burning cinders. She was fully dressed, but Agnidhra had become so lusty that he asked, "Why have you come naked?" Kim samvritam ruchirayor dvijashringayoste madhe krisho vahasi yatra drishi shrita me pankoruna surabhiratma vishana idrig yenashramam subhagame surabhi karoshi. Agnidhra then praised Purvacitti's raised breasts. He said, "My dear Brahman, your waist is very thin, yet with great difficulty you are carefully carrying 2 horns, to which my eyes have become attracted. What is filling those 2 beautiful horns?" Huh? I don't get the horns part. You seem to have spread fragrant red powder upon them, powder that is like the rising morning sun. O most fortunate one, I beg to inquire where you have gotten this fragrant powder that is perfuming my ashram, my place of residence. Agnidhra appreciated Purvacitti's raised breasts. After seeing the girl's breasts, he became almost mad. Nevertheless, he could not recognize whether Purvacitti was a boy or a girl, for as a result of his austerity, he saw no distinction between the two. That is just too bizarre. He therefore addressed her with the word Dvija, or O Brahman. Yet why should a Dvija, a Brahman boy, have horns on his chest? Oh my god. Because the boy's waist was thin, Agnidhra thought he was carrying the horns with great difficulty. Therefore they must be filled with something very valuable. Otherwise, why would he carry them? When a woman's waist is thin and her breasts are full, she looks very attractive. Agnidhra, his eyes attracted, contemplated the heavy breasts on the girl's thin body and imagined how her back must sustain them. Agnidhra imagined that her raised breasts were two horns that she had covered with cloth so that others would not see the valuables within them. Agnidhra, however, was very anxious to see them. Therefore, he requested, "Please uncover them so that I can see what you are carrying. Rest assured that I shall not take it away. If you feel an inconvenience in removing the covering, I can help you. I myself can uncover them to see what valuable things those raised horns contain." He was also surprised to see the red dust of perfumed kumkum spread over her breasts. Nevertheless, still considering Purvacitti a boy, Agnidhra addressed her as Subhaga, most fortunate Muni. The boy must have been fortunate, otherwise, how simply by standing there could he perfume Agnidhra's entire ashram? That was the most bizarre thing I've read yet. Okay. Lokam pradarshaya suhrittamastavakam me yatratyatam urasavaya vav upurvao asmar vidasya mana unnayano vibharti bhavadbhutam sarasarasa sudhadivaktre. O best friends, will you kindly show me the place where you reside? I cannot imagine how the residents of that place have gotten such wonderful bodily features as your raised breasts, which agitate the mind and eyes of a person like me who sees them. Judging by the sweet speech and kind smiles of those residents, I think that their mouths must contain nectar. Purport. Still bewildered, Agnidhra wanted to see the place from which the Brahmin boy had come, where the men had such raised breasts. Such attractive features, he thought, must be due to the severe austerities performed there. Agnidhra addressed the girl as Suhrittama, the best friend, so that she would not refuse to take him there. Not only was Agnidhra captivated by the girl's raised breasts, he was also attracted by her sweet speech. Nectar seemed to emanate from her mouth, and therefore he was increasingly surprised. Kavatma vrittiradana davar angavati Vishnu kalasya animishon makaro chakarno udvignamina yugalam vijapankti shochir asana bringanikaram sasara in mukamte. My dear friend, what do you eat to maintain your body? Because you are chewing betel, a pleasing scent is emanating from your mouth. This proves that you always eat the remnants of food offered to Vishnu. Indeed, you must also be an expansion of Lord Vishnu's body. Your face is as beautiful as a pleasing lake. Your jeweled earrings resemble two brilliant sharks with unblinking eyes like those of Vishnu, and your own eyes resemble two restless fish. Simultaneously, therefore, two sharks and two restless fish are swimming in the lake of your face. Besides them, the white rows of your teeth seem like rows of very beautiful swans in the water, and your scattered hair resembles swarms of bumblebees following the beauty of your face. Purport. The devotees of Lord Vishnu are also his expansions. They are called Vibhinangsha. Lord Vishnu is offered all kinds of sacrificial ingredients, and because devotees always eat prasad, the remnants of his food, the scent of sacrificial ingredients emanates not only from Vishnu, but also from the devotees who eat the remnants of his food or the food of his devotees. Agnidhra considered Purvacitti an expansion of Lord Vishnu because of the pleasing scent of her body. Aside from that, because of her jeweled earrings, shaped like sharks, because of her scattered hair, resembling bumblebees mad after the scent of her body, and because of the white rows of her teeth, which resemble swans, Agnidhra compared Purvacitti's face to a beautiful lake decorated with lotus flowers, fish, swans, and bumblebees. Yoso tvaya karasaro jahata patango dikshu brahman brahmata e jayate kshini me muktam nate smarasi vakra jata varutang kashto nilo haratilam pata eshanivim. My mind is already restless, and by playing with a ball, moving it about with your lotus-like palm, you are also agitating my eyes. Your curling black hair is now scattered, but you are not attentive to arranging it. Are you not going to arrange it? Like a man attached to women, the most cunning wind is trying to take off your lower garment. Are you not mindful of it? What verse is this? 14. Okay, we're ending with this. Purport. The girl Purvacitti was playing with a ball in her hand, and the ball seems like nothing but another lotus flower captured by her lotus-like palm. Because of her movements, her hair was loose, and the belt holding her cloth was giving way, as if the cunning wind were trying to make her naked. Yet she paid no attention to arranging her hair or fixing her dress. As Agnidhra tried to see the girl's naked beauty, his eyes were very agitated by her movements. Alright, so this is all the reading for today. We'll continue the last flattering verse tomorrow. I think so. Yeah. Alright, Hare Krishna. And we just finished at 8 o'clock. Perfect timing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Giridhari, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Mahabhagavat Srila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai, Nitil Pravishtam Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Nitya Vishta Vaishnav Sarva Bhumashla Jagannathas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Dashagunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rishi Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachai Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Rajamandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shamakund ki jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shivas Thakur ki jai. Shivas Panditer Tirabhav Titi ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur Vrindai Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. Tomorrow, let's see, what are we reading tomorrow? Okay, so Agnidhra, he expertly charms her, which is so bizarre, calling her a boy. I mean, how does that charm a girl anyways? They enjoy for thousands of years, and their 9 sons grow up, and Purvacitti returns to Brahmā. The sons inherit the 9 varshas of Jambudvip. Always thinking of her, Agnidhra joins Purvacitti on Pitri Loka. Their 9 sons marry the 9 daughters of Meru. So that's what we're reading tomorrow. Alright, Dandavat Pranams. See you all tomorrow. And I'm sorry the screen keeps on getting I see all these comments by Raseshwari Mataji that the screen keeps on getting stuck. I don't know what to do about that. If you have, if you only have a phone, then I'm not sure if you can look at the text. If you can look at the text and look at the video on your phone. I mean, that is possible if you have the premium version of YouTube. Then you can, the video can play in the background, so you can open up another window and you can still hear my voice. Otherwise, if you have a laptop or some other kind of thing, an iPad, or if you have a Kindle, then I could send you the Kindle book and you could follow along with the Kindle. Anyhow. Dandavat Pranams. Maybe I'll read about Srivas Thakur this evening. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, Haribol.